Welcome back, friends. We're in studio today and we're having a great time and we're learning a lot. And we're actually here today with a friend of mine, Brian Kendrick. Brian is highly intelligent. He's figured out a lot of things about life and he's overcome a lot of life's adversities. Oftentimes we hear stories of people saying, hey, I did this, I did that, and now I'm here. But we don't often understand how they got there. It seems like it's so easy for them, but we don't realize the challenges and the tribulations that the person went through. Brian, great to have you in studio today.
Thank you.
It's so good to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So let's talk, because I know a little bit about your story, and I'd like you to share it with our audience, because I think that what you've been able to do is quite profound. And I think that we can talk about it from the end result, but I think people need to know how you got there. So, begin where you want to begin.
Well, I talk about what it was like, where I came from, because, if I shared too much about what I'm doing now, sometimes it sounds like bragging. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about myself, I want people to know it carries a message that if I can do it, you can do it. Because 2 years ago, I was homeless. I lived in the streets of Chicago. I struggled with addiction my entire life. From a very young age, probably 14 or 15 is when I started drinking. And it just spiraled on to multiple felonies, in and out of prison, and ended up, my last 10 years, ended up with heroin addiction. And that was my drug of choice. That was my solution. That was what I was willing to sell my soul for. It turned me into a parasite. And that's why I'm always telling people that you don't hate yourself, you hate your actions. And the beautiful thing about actions is, as humans, we could change our actions at any given time. But I did things for this drug that made me loathe myself. And of course, I couldn't escape myself. And the only time that I had any hope, I was chasing hope in a bag of dope. It'd give me 2 or 3 hours where it wouldn't matter if I was in an alley or what I was doing. I had a feeling that everything was going to be okay. That was my solution. And I really, truly, honestly believe that I hated myself. I didn't find until I got into recovery that wasn't the case. My true self, who I was as a person, wasn't what I hated. It was the things I was doing for this drug. I can tell you that everywhere that drugs could possibly take a human being, they took me. I was homicidal, suicidal, and I took people with me. I took hostages because I've always had the gift of gab, and I used that. And it wasn't even bad intentions. I never set out to be a bad person, but my selfishness, ego, edging God out, I was stuck in such a selfish state that everybody became ways and means for me to get more, and I used them, and even my own daughter and my own mother, my attempts at loving them, because I didn't love myself. Even when I tried to love God, my hands were seeking, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. My bottom ended up in the streets of Chicago, Illinois. I had a girlfriend at the time, and we went there trying to run from a situation, and it just ended up spiraling and getting worse. We ended up homeless together on the streets. I was on a suicide mission. I can remember one time toward the end of my drug career, I was walking across this overpass that we always walked across. And as we walked across it, I was such a negative, parasitic, pessimistic person. I would talk about jumping off this bridge as we walked across it. And she would call me on it. And she turned around and she said, "You're not going to do it." And more or less called me a coward. And I promise you, I remember that moment. I almost jumped off that bridge, but she had $100-something in her pocket, and the dope spot was just a couple blocks away. So in that scenario, that chase for that hope and that dope got me across that bridge. And then there wasn't one specific thing that happened that made me wake up. There's a bunch of different things that happened. She left me. I ended up realizing that my biggest fear was to be alone. My ego always told me I was such a popular, charming person that I would never have to face being alone. At the end of my path, my mother, who was my enabler, who I called and put through hell on earth, got involved with Al-Anon, which is a fellowship for addicts and loved ones of addicts and alcoholics. And she changed her number. I used to put my cell phone and my wallet in my shoe, and then I would put my shoe under my head. I was sleeping on the streets. And I woke up, somebody had got my shoes and my wallet, my dope, and my cell phone. And at that point, I was shooting drugs in my neck. And the only way to do that, you have to have a mirror. I couldn't just wing it. I had to get into some place, which was hard to do because I was such a nasty, filthy person that most places could recognize me as a junkie and wouldn't let me in. So now I don't even have shoes, even if I could get the dope to the cop. I called my mom. She had changed her number. And there was one person that I grew up with, I met in high school, Marty Norman, who had 2 years clean at the time. And I called him, and he sent some people to come get me from Chicago, Illinois. And then a bunch of other things. I still didn't get it. He brought me to Terre Haute, and I went into a sober living community for men, and I got a lot sicker than what I planned on doing. And my mother was coming to bring me clothes and money, and I called and told her I couldn't do sober living. I needed inpatient treatment. I called a friend of mine. It was my go-to guy where I always went for drugs. Told him to order up some drugs. I'd be there in like an hour. She called Marty. Marty told her, do not go get him. And she turned around. And I threw up hands and feet, went to sleep, and when I woke up the next morning, that friend who I was counting on to go stay with had overdosed and died.
Oh, wow.
And then it goes even further from there. At 3 months clean, I moved in with Marty, and we was presented with an opportunity from a lady that Marty knew whose son had died of a drug overdose. She came to us and said, I will sell you this house at a reasonable price if you promise to do something for addicts. So at 3 months clean, Marty had 2.5 years clean or so. That's why we were able to do it. But at 3 months clean, I was put into human service. I had an opportunity to help others, and I'm so grateful that happened. Now we have 2, and we're working on a 3rd recovery home for men. Now I'm a certified recovery specialist. I've been on the dean's list. I'm in my 2nd year of college, and I'm an outreach coordinator for a wonderful, amazing treatment center. And I've been blessed. So I can't tell you one certain thing that happened. It was a lot of different things that happened, and I can't tell you if the Truman House hadn't happened, would I still be clean? I don't know. I'm just very grateful that it happened that way.
When you did get clean and at that 3 months and you're giving back to people already, could you even believe or identify yourself from the past? When you look back into the past, 3 months before, 6 months before, could you even believe where you were at that point in time?
Well, now that I've got distance, after 3 months, it was a process. And like I said, I have a program. And when I say a program, I mean I have a community and a fellowship around me. I have mentors. I have a sponsor. I have teachers, which is one of the things. Life had finally, when I woke up and found out that my friend had overdosed, that was my moment of surrender, where I finally said, okay. And I think I'd had more moments similar to that in life, but I never became teachable. My ego was always so big, and I don't mean I was puffed up, thought I was better than everybody. I mean, when I say ego, is when you're stuck in a selfish state that separates you from other humans, and you're not teachable, and you don't have connection. And 12-step fellowship that allowed me to get rid of some of the junk that was keeping me from connecting with other humans. So I became teachable, and I do 12-step fellowship. I've done therapy. I go to church. I have a lot of mentors and a lot of teachers today. As I've went on this journey that's 22 months now, my inner circle has just been getting better and bigger and stronger. And, wise men seek wise counsel. And that is something that I live by. They say that they can predict your future off your 5 closest friends. And I've been hearing that because I have an addiction, an obsession with motivational. I think motivational speakers and inspirational videos have been just as big a part of my recovery as all that other stuff. I mean, that is my new thing that I'm hooked on, to inspire people to become their greatest versions. And it's not just an addict thing. In a 12-step program, the only one that has anything to do with drugs and alcohol is that first one. You admit that you were powerless over drugs and alcohol and your life had become unmanageable. Well, here's the catch. You could work that step 1 with people, with money, with shopping, with sex, with gambling, with anything that makes your life unmanageable. Anything that puts you, like I said, when I was an addict, it wasn't a conscious thing, but I was constantly thinking about self. So there was no room for God's light to get in. I couldn't receive it. Darkness and light can't occupy the same place at the same time. So there was no room for the Spirit to get in. I had to get out of that selfishness that I was stuck in for my entire life.
Wow, that's amazing. Let me ask you, when you're working with clients now and you're working with fellow people, What are some of the big red flags or some of the things that you remember that you did when you were in that state that kind of reminds you of that ego popping out? Some of the things that might be said or some actions that they do when they're first showing up to get sober.
I love that. That's a good question right there. Here's the thing. We got guys all the time. We have 18 residents right now. And this was told to me because I was worse at it than anybody. They come in and you're trying to tell them something and they say, I know. No. What you need to do is forget everything that you knew because what you knew got you here. Start from scratch. And a lot of them have tried recovery multiple times because it's unfortunate, but that's just a statistic. That's how I was in and out of treatment probably 6 times before I finally got it. So they come in and they've been in treatment before and you try to tell them something, I know. No, you don't. No, you don't. And there's a lot of things in life, especially when it comes to spiritual principles and stuff that we teach in our program, that you cannot intellectualize. Knowing is sometimes the enemy. Like gratitude, love, forgiveness, these are action words. Until you put action behind it, you're not going to understand it. Like I could sit here and I could just, I'm pretty good at writing and describing things, and I could tell you all about when I pick up a weight and when I lift it, and after I lift it so many times the blood rushes and the veins start to pump. I could describe that, and really you could almost literally feel it, but you're not going to know until you go and pick up that weight.
Exactly. Wow, that's pretty profound. So let me ask you another thing too, because I think that when people haven't found God, when people haven't found spirituality, I think that they sit there and they agree and oh yeah. But but what was that profound moment when you realized that it wasn't going through the motions anymore? That you had finally seen this other side and realized, because I know what it was for me, and I know what the change was for me, and I know what I went through. And sometimes you'll try to explain that to people, and it's the yes, okay, whatever, and some people will kind of laugh at it. But what was that moment, kind of when you finally kind of got there and you realized and you go, okay, I can never go backwards?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I don't think that I could never go backwards. I could tell you that if I moved to a new city and I didn't continue to go in meetings and stay of human service or have some kind of fellowship, that very soon I would start to get restless, irritable, and discontent. And as an addict or an alcoholic, if I remain restless, irritable, and discontent for too long of a time, that's going to be my solution, because I get stuck in that egoic, poor me. This is what I want. This is what I need. We call it the parasite. It's kind of a joke of our more, always thinking about self. And that's how I am by nature. By nature, I'm extremely selfish. By nature, I'm not the kind of person you want in your inner circle. The reason I am this way is because of a spiritual maintenance program that I do on a daily. So, and my spiritual thing, here's the thing, I had all these preconceived notions. I got saved when I was younger in a Baptist, really indoctrinated church, and I had all these preconceived notions. I had a friend, I was in a Christian band when I was younger, and we got in a car wreck and he died, and I developed this resentment toward what I thought was God. So in early recovery, I was seeking God. I was studying Buddhism. I was studying Hinduism. I was looking for all of this stuff. But as my journey continued, it became more about subtracting all the lies that I'd believed about God and simplifying it. And there's some things, man, like I said, knowledge is the enemy. I don't try to explain God. And I tell you, I don't believe that you can hate God, because I believe that God is love. You cannot hate love. Like I said, darkness and light can't occupy the same place at the same time. I believe that the devil or the parasite is in every place in humanity. We see it in politics, we see it in race, we see it in religions, we see it in social classes. It's a war strategy to divide, separate, and conquer. Mm-hmm. So anything that gives me the attitude that I'm right, you're wrong, therefore I can't receive nothing from you, that is the enemy. And sometimes I've got to simplify it right down to positive and negative. My God is positive energy. My God is love. And sometimes, man, instead of explaining it, I just have to be love. You know, I understand that I need forgiveness, so I forgive you. Mm-hmm. I understand that I need a lot from my higher power, and the only way that my higher power speaks to me is not some voice from the sky. It's through other people. Mm-hmm. And here's a catch-22, man. My God speaks to me through people that my human nature doesn't even want to listen to. I run into people, and I got some kind of, I don't care for this person. I've learned through my spiritual practices that those are the people that I need to listen to the most. And I believe that we were all created in an image, so the way I treat other people is a way of worship worshiping my higher power. If I practice active listening, then I'm worshiping my God. So if I shut my eyes with these people that it's my nature not to like and just listen, wow, then I'll get something to be like, I'm so glad I did this.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love talking with you, and I'd like us to do another interview, another meeting here soon, because I think that you can really impart some true knowledge to people, because I do think that a lot of people overthink it. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, too, it just seems so overwhelming to folks, because they're looking for the answers, and they have all these questions, and it seems like nobody's got the answers. Yeah. So one last thing before we leave today that you would like to express to our viewers about, just whatever. I mean, whatever you think is really important.
Well, I really do believe that instead of a human looking for a spiritual experience, I am a spirit having a human experience. Go to Brian Kendrick Live on Facebook. Check my message out. It's not just to do with addiction or recovery. It's a human thing. It's a spiritual thing. And I believe there are many different sufferings in the world, but the solution is the same for all of them. Community, fellowship, and love. Never be silent about your struggles. Give your pain a voice. You're only one decision away from a new beginning. And this, there's so much. Rock bottom is a great place to build a foundation. This could be the best day of the rest of your life. You want to change? Find a way to make your worst moment your best moment. That's the kind of stuff you're going to hear. And of course we do it with humor. This is a serious interview, but Monday morning motivation at Marty Norman Live. We have a Monday morning show at 9 a.m. Eastern time. Check us out, man. You want to be a part of the message? You want to be a part of the fellowship? We use social media as a platform. And if nobody's told you that they love you today, I love you and I love you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming in, Brian. I love it. I can't wait to see you again and have you back in studio.
Absolutely.
Think about it. What if we just had these images of division? What if we just thought that we saw people that were different color, different races, different creed, and we just think that they're way different from us? We build up these barriers in our head, in our minds, in our heart, and then we build up these barriers that are actual structural barriers away from people so that we cut ourselves away from the world. And what happens then? When we do that to each person, we're cutting ourselves away from ourselves. Yes. We're all connected to the whole. We're all spiritual beings. And just think about it. Why can't we be spiritual beings having this lifetime in a human body that we kept? And we decided to keep, we picked it out maybe ourselves. Brian, so great to have you. I look forward to having our next meeting. And in the meantime, if you like this video, please say that you like it and subscribe to the channel and comment on it. The information on Brian's show will be in the description below. And in the meantime, don't forget to live your true life. Are you currently in a toxic relationship and unsure what the next day will bring? Have you often wondered if there's more to life than this? Do you suffer from self-esteem issues that you've had since you were a young child? Have issues or have difficulty speaking with your family? Do you feel surrounded by self-centered people? Seems as though you're always giving and they're always taking. If you've answered yes to any of these questions, you need some answers. The 10-day challenge to live your true life gives you the knowledge and techniques for creating boundaries in your life that help us to deal with family, as well as dealing with those narcissistic and toxic people in your life. It offers the insight into understanding and overcoming your self-esteem issues, and to begin to see for the first time your amazing value. You owe it to yourself to find the power within you.